Hey guys, what is up? It is Bibs7 here again, and welcome to another RuneScape 3 video here today. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the reveals that they just had for the Zamorak boss fight. They've posted a news post on the website, but they also did a 2-hour live stream of the, actually they did a few updates, so I'll probably touch on, or I don't know if I'll make a separate video. It depends how long I talk about the Zamorak stuff, but there were quite a few nice things shown in the other sections about the new quest that's coming and the first part of the Wilderness Reborn. Or I guess it's not really a part, they're just doing a Wilderness Reborn. But with the Wilderness Reborn, that at least what they revealed in the stream, there's not a ton of new content coming. It's just going to be available to put new content in the future. But the things that are changing in the wild sounded really cool. But yeah, anyway, there are some crazy melee buffs coming with this Zami boss release, and the stuff that they have is absolutely insane. So I haven't read this article yet, but I did watch the stream, of course, and I took quite a few notes about stuff. So if there's anything not in the article that I do have in my notes, I'll of course mention that. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. In your fifth and final Elder God Wars dungeon battle, you'll face the God of Chaos himself, Zamorak. So yeah, basically, he is in the Wilderness Crater, as I mentioned from my video where I reacted to the reveal trailer. And the dungeon is part of Sentiston, actually. So as I guess I was correct in assuming that the architecture was the same. And I guess you're going to be starting it from Sentiston somehow. I'm not sure where exactly, but obviously it is part of the Elder God Wars. Technically, it's the fifth and final Elder God Wars dungeon boss, and we're going to need to go from Sentiston through the, I think they're calling it the, I don't know what did they say? Let me see. The Sentiston Undercity or the Zamorakian Undercity to reach Zamorak, like, because we can't assault him directly since he has like impenetrable barriers up to avoid people coming through the wilderness or whatever to get to him. But this is kind of like a vulnerability, a little back door of sorts that has been left open as he's trying to gather the demons for his army. So yeah, let's see. Oh, okay. So I guess we're battling from Sentiston somehow. What does it say exactly? I haven't read this exactly yet. He's channeling a massive infernal portal from the Infernal Source's Hydra Gate, positioned directly below the Sword of Edicts. So we're going to be battling to the Hydra Gate of the Infernal Source, I guess, and then going from there. So yeah, it's called the Zamorakian Undercity. And you know how all the elite dungeons have a name. You have the Shadow Reef, the Dragonkin Lab, and the Temple of Amanishi. This is the Zamorakian Undercity, and yeah, there are a lot of words here. But I mean, it seems like it's going to be all the same info from the stream. Of course, as we know, 1 to 5 players. But they did share quite a few things that make it quite a bit different from the other elite dungeons. First of all, doing it in larger teams is not going to make it easier. The entire dungeon scales based off group size as well as, of course, the Enrage. So if you have 5 people, the monsters are going to have 5 times as much health to compensate for that. So I think that's good personally, because as it is right now at the other elite dungeons, it's way, way easier to do in a group where you just smash straight through the dungeon. There's no challenge at all, but this will make it a bit harder. And something that they revealed, which I thought sounded really, really cool, is, of course, as the whole dungeon is active on this Enrage system, the enemies will get tougher, of course, but they'll also be swapping out enemies or having enemy variants for different Enrage levels, which I think is awesome. That's going to be making the dungeon pretty cool as well. However, as of course they said in the other video, you can skip the elite dungeon to go straight to the boss, but this dungeon also is differing from the other elite dungeons in that the drops from the actual dungeon itself are going to be more rewarding. And as far as I understand from the way they said it, there's not going to be relics this time around. It's just going to be regular drops, I believe, because they said that they wanted to move away from the existing elite dungeon system. They didn't like it or whatever, but they didn't specifically say no relics, but that's what I would have assumed from that. And there are, of course, the 3 modes. There's normal mode, which is just, I guess that would count as 0% Enrage mode. And there's story mode still for this elite dungeon, which is, I think you take 10% damage or something like that. But you can actually get drops in this version of story mode, which is interesting because the other ones you cannot. And then the Enrage mode, which is what most people are going to want to try and do to push Enrage. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And yeah, the valuable drops make it running. You can get drops in story mode, but it's of course a much reduced rate, but still good that it has drops at all to give people a way to learn or have some incentive. And then we have, oh wow, they actually give you the names of these effects here. That's interesting. Of course, we have the Enrage mechanic, does not stop at 4,000. And they say it has unlimited Enrage. Actually, it doesn't. They did reveal in the stream that the hard Enrage cap is 60,000% right now, which is obviously ridiculous. More than 10 times the current Enrage caps at the other bosses. And they've said before, this is going to be impossible or insanely difficult. And, people end up doing it pretty quickly or quicker than they thought. I really don't think that this is going to be something that's done quickly, if ever. 60,000% Enrage. I mean, it's insane. All right, sorry about that. I had to just cut there for a second. But yeah, 60,000% Enrage cap. But they did say that if people do end up somehow getting there, they will just move it. They can increase the cap if needed. So that's possible. So that's interesting, I would say. And now they have this whole section about hexes versus runes. Basically, if you look here at this picture of the boss fight, you have the edicts or whatever, the runes from the quest, from the Wordle puzzle that they had in the quest Twilight of the Gods. And each of these you're going to have to activate throughout the fight. And they're basically the phase transitions is what it sounded like. And each of these will have a certain effect that will power you up, but also Zamorak will cast a subsequent hex that will obviously debuff you in some way or make the fight more dangerous. And the very, very cool and interesting part about this is you can trigger these in any order you want. So basically you have control over the phase order of the fight. And obviously, I mean, you can just assume, we don't know what these effects really are, I don't think, unless they break it down somewhere else. But, some of these are going to be, better suited for making, there's going to be different orders for maybe you want to be really safe and make it as easy as possible. I'm sure there'll be a certain order that makes that, as good as it can be. But then there's also going to be a certain order for as fast as you can go. It's very interesting. And they also say that when you activate a hex, any previous activated effects get stronger as well. So that's another obviously important thing to consider when you're picking these. And there are 6 of them. So I assume you start at a certain point where you do damage and, to a certain point where you can activate one of these. So that would be phase 1. And then when you activate one, I guess starts phase 2. And then you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And assumedly that would be the end. But maybe there's another one. So it's like 7 or 8 phases of a fight, which is kind of crazy. And they have a couple names for boss mechanics. I mean, these don't really mean anything. But there are a lot of mechanics with this fight. So it's going to be really interesting to learn and definitely cool to experiment and see which, configuration of runes order will be the best. So that's that. 90% less damage in story mode. They have the 3 different. Oh, I didn't see this at all. After running 25, okay, so they actually tell you right here, takes 25 full successful runs of the Zamorakian Undercity to get a handy shortcut, skipping right to the fight. They also said that would be unlocked at a potential Enrage level as well. Maybe if you get that before the KC, I'm not sure though. It doesn't actually say that. There's also going to be an Aftermath mini quest that will send you to battle Zamorak and type a few loose ends. That's interesting. That's kind of random that's under the difficulty section. Let me check my notes, though, because they're going to get to the rewards already, and there was a couple of other things that I had that I wanted to mention. The Enraged thresholds will change the enemies in the dungeon. Important to note, Zamorak is the only real boss in the dungeon. It's not like the others, which have technically 3 bosses. There's only 1 boss. However, there are some mandatory mini-bosses, which I assume are just going to be similar to the other Elite Dungeon mini-bosses, where they're not really a big threat. They're just a high HP mob with maybe has some specs or some, adrenaline abilities or something like that. So yeah, that is important to note because there's only that 1 boss that you have to deal with. And also the mini-boss spawns are not random in this dungeon either. They'll always be the same, partially because, of course, some are mandatory. They did show quite a bit of the dungeon in the video, so a couple of thoughts I wrote down. The barriers are a lot cooler looking. They're like red because, you know, Zamorakian and stuff like that. So I like that quite a bit. Also, something that the Enrage will change. I'm not sure if that's only because of the different mobs. Of course, in the Elite Dungeons currently, if you're doing them a lot, you'll eventually know exactly which mobs you have to kill to open the gate. But if the mobs are changing, you won't know exactly. They said different ways to get through the gates sometimes with Enrage. Maybe it's just with the different mobs, but maybe there's additional changes like that, similar to how the Shadow Reef has those buttons on one of the gates. Let's see, what else did they say? He said there's no way to cheese skipping, like the skipping to the boss mechanic, which I don't understand what that means at all. He said something about that, and it didn't really make sense to me, so I'm not sure what cheesing would be done there. One thing I was kind of disappointed to hear was that the dungeon itself will not make the drop rates better. Like if you run through the full dungeon and fight the boss rather than just skipping to the boss, you will not like have a better drop rate or anything as far as I understand it, which is kind of disappointing if you ask me. I wish they would have at least a small buff. Of course, you still get the loot from the dungeon and stuff like that. And there is one specific unique thing to the dungeon rewards that are only gettable from there and not the boss. But I still kind of wish that there was a little bit further incentive to run the dungeon, especially depending on how long it will take. Although the RS guy who was on the stream said that it is actually a bit shorter than the other Elite dungeons, allegedly. So we'll see how that works out. But of course, as the Enrage goes up, it'll get longer because it's harder and there's more health and more different enemies and stuff. So yeah, let's keep going here. They said it's the most scalable boss fight ever, mechanically intense, a lot of mechanics, but they differ in terms of complexity. Yep, he will safe versus fast order on the runes. Just going through my notes here, stuff I already mentioned. The first team of each category, so you know, solo, duo, trio, 4-man, and 5-man. The first team in each of those categories that gets to 100% Enrage and beats it will get some sort of rewards. They're going to reveal them later in the week, they said. Probably just like a title or something, I don't know. But yeah, so that'll be cool to see. You know, people are going to be trying to race to be the first one there. I mean, I'm never going to be the first one to get any of those, but I mean, I'm definitely going to be doing it on release. So we'll see what happens there. And also, there'll be rewards for the first team of each size to get 1000% Enrage. So who knows how long that'll take, but very cool. And yeah, a little bit more on what they said about how it ends up, the Enrage changes. Another very helpful thing the RS guy said is obviously going up to 60,000 Enrage. Look at Arch Glacier at 4,000% Enrage. It has like what, over 3 million health, I think. I don't even know. This boss, the health scaling does stop at a certain point. So at like 10,000 Enrage, it's not going to have 10 million health or whatever. So it doesn't scale infinitely in terms of the health, which is good because that would just be kind of annoying. But they did say like maybe over several years while we get better gear, we'll be able to chip away 10% additional Enrage here and there. But we're not getting to 60,000 anytime soon, if ever. So I'm really interested to see how far people can get. Obviously, the number one person you'd think of, Eva Lucario, is you know, a big grinder, especially for like Arch Glacier, and he's really good at PVM. He'll probably be the person to watch to see how high you can push things. I will respond to that guy after the video. Apologies if you're watching this. But I'm just want to focus on the recording here. There's fixed rates for the drops like Raksha, so same rates regardless of group, which I think, of course, is good. Also important to note, since it is group Enrage, you might want to know how that works. Basically, the group can go in with the highest Enrage of the people in the group. So like if one person has 10% Enrage as their highest, another has 500%, you can go in at 500% Enrage in a duo. But anyone that's not, you know, anyone's Enrage that's in the group, their highest Enrage will only go up by 10% per kill. So if you kill it at 500%, your highest Enrage is 10%, your highest Enrage will then be 20%, but the person who killed it as well with you will also go up to 5-10%. And the Enrage does increase by a flat amount per kill of 10%. There's no randomness involved there. And there's no streaking at all involved, which I think is good. The RS guy also mentioned that he thinks that the boss fight flows better in a group than it does solo. So that's, I guess, something to consider if you want to choose to do a group fight instead of a solo on the day of release. And that's everything I had in terms of the dungeon. So now we're going to get into the rewards. And man, these are crazy. So, first of all, here we have the slivers that we've been collecting. I'll show you in my bank, of course. I've been doing it every day on this account, so I haven't missed any. And I have 6 of each sliver and 6 additional reroll tokens. So these are going to be used to upgrade existing items, which we did know already, because if you try to use one, it says, or I mean, they told us that they would upgrade existing items or something. I remember this was already known, but now we know exactly what this is going to be. So basically, it's a very interesting system. I like it quite a bit, honestly. Pretty much, you're going to be using these slivers alongside some existing items. Probably like random components. Who knows? It's not going to actually be these items that are listed here. They say these items are upgradable. That is not how it works, based on the stream exactly. Basically, how it works is you're going to take a certain amount of slivers, and then, again, I don't know, some additional component items, and that will create you an enchantment, basically. And that enchantment is then tradable, so you can trade the enchantment, or you can use it yourself. And if you use it, that unlocks a passive upgrade for that item on your account. So you're not going to have like upgraded Hex Hunter bow. You're going to have the Hex Hunter bow, I don't know, empowering enchantment that you can use. And then when you use the Hex Hunter bow, you will have a better effect. So this doesn't exactly explain it very well. That's how they explained it on the stream. For sure, that is how it will work. And I mean, I like it a lot. I think it's pretty cool to have the ability to unlock these passive effects. And this is what is exclusive to the dungeon runs themselves. There is no ability to get these if you are only killing the boss. So again, it depends on how much these things end up being, or the upgrades. But it'll be interesting to see if that is worth doing the dungeon to get. And they also said they could add more things like this if we like them. I mean, I already love the idea because they're not changing the item itself, and it's not going to complicate things in that way. It's just a passive unlock for your account, which I think it's a pretty cool idea. And then, of course, as you've been able to see here, the upgradable items are all of the whatever you want to call them. The thing that is strong against certain styles. The Hex Hunter bow, Inquisitor staff, and Pterosaur Maul are all going to be increased in power by one of these enchantments. All of the best gloves for their style, so the wrist wraps, the gloves of passage, and the nightmare gauntlets are going to have an upgrade, and also the three of the new the DK rings, or whatever, the matriarch rings. Also, importantly, not including the I actually don't know what the name of the other one is. I think it's the Berserker ring, isn't it? Reaver's ring, right? That one is not on here, so that will not be included. So those are the 9 items, and each of these, of course, are a certain style. So the slivers of that style are going to be needed to use to upgrade or get those enchantments. So the sliver of strength is melee, pain is range, and power is mage. Important to note that as well. So very cool. They also say, you'll have the lore pages. They have those in all the dungeons, so that'll be similar. And yeah, so the mobs all have their own loot tables. They actually didn't say anything about a new type of resonant anima or a new trove or anything like that. I hope they have a new trove for this dungeon at least. I don't know if there's going to be any change to the Pontifex ring or not. They did not say that. But now we can get into the big drops from the boss. All the following drops are only from the boss. You can't get them from anything else. So let's get into it. The new tier 95 bow is called the Bow of the Last Guardian, which is a very cool name. And again, of course, it's Guthix based. I think it looks good. I know some people don't like it exactly how it looks, but I mean, personally, I like it quite a bit. And of course, this is going to be very useful to use with the new Dying Arrows. You can see one here, the big arrow right there. And this thing sounds crazy, honestly. It sounds super strong. And also, these are the dyed versions, which look pretty sweet as well. You can't really ever know how they'll look until you see them in game. But for me, I think probably, the ice one just kind of looks like a Seren God bow. Probably Third Age for me, and maybe Blood. But I've always been a fan of Third Age Died stuff. Obviously, I'm not going to probably ever have it, but yeah, you can read the stuff on here. I'm going to use my notes for this because I have all the details. Basically, the bow has a passive effect where every time you use an ability, you'll gain a stack, and at 8 stacks, they will be consumed. So you'll basically use 8 abilities, or I guess he did say it's on hit, so I guess rapid fire would apply however many hits it does. 8 hits. Wow, I didn't know it was that many. So rapid fire will like instantly stack it, I guess. And I'm not sure if you get 8 stacks and then the 9th ability procs it, or if the 8th ability will proc it. Probably the 9th, but it doesn't. It's not 100% clear. And basically, it will deal 8 to 14% ability damage, which is basically nothing. I don't even know why that's there. But it will also then deal 35 to 60% of the damage that triggered the consumption. So say I use the full channel of Rapid Fire, get 8 stacks. The next ability I use, I'm going to want to be a powerful one, like, say, Tendrils or whatever. You want it to be a powerful ability that, does one big hit. I assume it wouldn't work like for something like Snapshot. It would only do one of the hits, but that, again, not clear. But it sounds really cool, and it's like skill-based a little bit, the passive. You got to make sure you're using your powerful ability on that proc to get the most out of it and get that extra 35 to 60% damage. So I like that a lot. That's a pretty cool idea. And then it also, of course, has a special attack, which is called Balance by Force. And this will cost 30% adrenaline, which isn't too much. Of course, 27% with the Ring of Vigor passive. And it lasts for 30 seconds. It's another spec that gives you an effect for 30 seconds. And there's no cooldown on this, which is important. You can have this effect basically permanently while you're using the bow. It'll hit for a chunk of damage, which it looked like it was a lot of damage when they were showing it. It hits pretty high, and then it will decrease the number of stacks needed for that passive effect to proc. They did not say what it decreases it to, but still, I mean, if you're using this bow, it's something you're always going to want to have up, I would assume. And also important to note there, it's basically useless to put in an EOF. It's not going to do anything on other bows except for give you the damage. I mean, maybe it would be worth it for that, but probably not. Who knows with Range's adrenaline abilities. I think that's interesting for sure that they definitely wanted to not get another EOF weapon in there. So that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. It looks like a really cool spec, and the passive is interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what people can do with it. And then as far as it drops, it only drops from the boss. And again, as usual, it drops in 3 separate pieces, which is kind of meh, but whatever. And they'll drop in order. So you'll assemble them and create the weapon. So yeah, really, really cool. Range, of course, is pretty strong still right now. So this is just going to make it even better, especially with those new arrows. So definitely looking forward to seeing people testing that thing out. But this next section is what I'm more excited about personally than the bow. The Vestments of Havoc. And you might remember from the trailer, I saw this armor and I said, looks like mage armor. It is melee armor, and it is tier 95 in terms of the, I guess the requirements, but it is actually tier 70 defense and tier 100 damage bonus, which is crazy. The highest damage of any armor in the game. And it kind of fits with the look of it, obviously. Like it's like a robe skirt, kind of. It doesn't look tanky at all. It is definitely fitting to that glass cannon theme. And that sounds crazy. I'm really looking forward to trying this out. But that's not all. It also has some insane set effects, which they don't give you all the details of. So I have all the details here. And it is a 4-piece set. And I believe there are no gloves on it. So there are 4 pieces: helm, body, legs, and boots. Tier 70 armor, tier 100 damage. The set effects are, if you're wearing at least 2 pieces, you will be, this one's the most complicated. If you're wearing at least 2 pieces, after you cast an ultimate ability, you will then regenerate 15% adrenaline over 18 seconds, which is basically nothing. That's really not that useful because that's such a long time. But if this effect is already active, so you're already regenerating that adrenaline and you use another ultimate, you'll instead regenerate 20% adrenaline instantly. So that is crazy, honestly. If you have Conservation of Energy, Ring of Vigor passive, and this, you'll be left with 40% adrenaline after using an ultimate, which is insane, honestly. And if you, as you'll see, you'll have the ability to basically have, well, I guess it wouldn't. I guess you can't have conservation of energy and heightened senses at the same time. But if you could, and you had this, you'd be able to have 70% adrenaline after using an ult, but you'll still be able to have 60% adrenaline after using an ult, no pot, nothing, if you're getting this effect and you have heightened senses and the fourth set effect here. So, getting ahead of myself, but if you have at least 3 pieces, you'll also get that original effect, and Berserk's duration will be increased by 6 seconds, which is obviously just a good buff to Berserk. And lastly, if you're wearing all 4 pieces, your maximum adrenaline will be increased by 20. So if you have heightened senses, that will be 130% max with the relic. But if you have 100, if you don't have it, you still have 120% adrenaline. So then you have that, you have the additional 20% from the effect, and then an additional 10% from your Ring of Vigor passive. So how much would that end up being, I guess? So 10% from this, 20, and then you have an additional 20. So that would be, I guess you wouldn't have 60%, my mistake back there. You would be able to have 50% adrenaline on using an ult if you have all that stuff going. So that is crazy, honestly. But I think the Berserk duration is awesome. The tier 100 damage, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be super strong. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what people can do with melee after this comes out. But that's not all that melee is getting. Let's scroll down here. This is the boss pet, I guess. And there's a skin for 500 kills as well, which is interesting. It just looks like a mini Greater Demon, I guess. Okay, they talk about titles. I want to talk about the new melee ability. There's a new ability. Yay! They're making new ability. I'm so happy when they make new abilities as opposed to greater ones, but there's also some greater abilities here as well. There's a new melee ability. It's called Chaos Roar, and it sounds broken OP, dog. It doubles the base damage of your next hit, and it works on bleeds. So if you combine this with the Exa kill spec, according to the RS guy who's chimed in with this, every bleed hit of that can deal 10k damage. And I don't even remember how many bleed hits it does. It's an insane number. That just sounds so crazy. And it only doubles the next hit. So it will only be like the first hit of assault if you're using that or something like that. But using it with bleeds, that sounds broken. And it is a basic ability. And yeah, I have no idea. That sounds insane. I'm really looking forward to seeing people testing that. That's a new ability. Again, I'm not going to get into the titles just yet. There's also this blank codex, which can be crafted into greater sunshine and greater death swiftness abilities. So that's pretty cool. And basically what these do is it just gives you planted feet. That's it. That's the upgrade, which is awesome. No more planted feet switch. It's built in. You can now just ult, and you don't have the vigor or planted feet switch. It's crazy. And it also will give you the damage over time effect still, which is not that significant, but still important to note. So that's awesome. I think it's good that they're reducing the amount of switches that's needed for doing because that's just one that you would always do. That's what I think is important about the reduction of switchscape. Is if it's a switch like Ring of Vigor or Planted Feet that you would just always do, there was no thought, no consideration, then those should be removed or changed in some way. But if there's switches that are important and need timing to be used effectively and are strategical, I think that's better than something like this. So I'm glad they're removing that, and that's the blank codex. I don't know what they're talking about here. You can earn Zamorak reroll tokens. Yeah, you can get them from the Elder God Wars. And I guess this is going to stick around forever. But of course, if you haven't been doing the event, I would do it now. I would get on it because you can get 10 of them from doing the event. And I guess you'll get one from doing that mini quest. Yeah, and then there's the permanent high scores, which is awesome. And then also, of course, there's the titles. Last thing here. So yeah, Infinite Enrage, you'll get titles at specific enrages. You'll get the Lord of Chaos title for 500% enrage, silver at 2000%, and the gold version at 4000%. And I'm sure if people go super high, they'll get something. I mean, they'll add something in up at the higher tiers. Also, if you're in solo, there's actually separate titles for solo versus group, and it's just Wrath of Chaos, same enrage thresholds, but just a different title to indicate that you're doing it in solo. And the collection log title is so cool. It's God Slayer. I love that. That's an amazing title that they're adding. So that is everything on the article here. Let me look at my notes one more time. Yeah, there's nothing else I don't think that I have. So that is about it for this the boss. I am so excited. The melee buffs are crazy, bro. And the bow sounds cool as well. I'm really looking forward to the reduction in switchscape with the new codexes, and just, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be an amazing release. So I'll be making videos out the wazoo on the Monday release date. Really can't wait. I'm not going to be talking about the rest of the updates in this video. I'll probably talk about that on Monday when I make my weekly vlog, because I assume there's just going to be a small patch week this next upcoming Monday. So I'll include the details that they revealed and my thoughts on them for the new quest and the Wilderness Reborn in that video instead. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments on this. Are you going to be hammering out some Zamorak Enrage kills on day of release? What's your plan? I cannot wait for this release. It's going to be amazing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.